ask your partner if they have any desires or needs that aren't being met or fantasies that they would like fulfilled.
Right? See, that has nothing to do with, hey, honey, let's go to a swingers club, or hey, I think we should have an open relationship, which your partner's just going to be like, wait, what?
Hey guys, it's John and Jackie of OpenLove101.com. Welcome to our show. Be sure and sign up to our email list at OpenLove101.com, and we'll let you know about upcoming podcasts and blogs like this one, which is about how do I get my partner to agree to an open relationship? One of our most common questions that we get at Open Love 101.
The answer is you can't. Thanks for joining us.
See ya. Well, the thing is, you're talking about having a really serious conversation with your partner. If you're in a monogamous relationship and you're talking about how do I get my partner to become a swinger or to have more of a poly relationship or maybe an open relationship, that's a big step. And it really depends on where you are in your communication with your partner in that moment. And Jackie and I earlier were talking with someone else about this topic. And let's start with, where are you guys sexually in this moment? Are you just having, your intimacy together? Is it just kind of, missionary position and you're not really experimenting sexually at all within your relationship, within yourself? If that's where you are, then what we would recommend is start with talking about things you can do to enhance your intimacy with each other.
There's so much wrapped up. There's like so much I want to say right now, and it's going to all come out at the same time. So like the first thing I have to say is just even the question, how do I get my partner into doing so? You're right. We get that question and it's usually framed by that. I know I'm hitting the table. Sorry. I'm preaching. We get that question framed that way so often. And like the one thing that I want to say to people is just even think about how you're thinking about how to bring this up. Just even the way you are asking that question to yourself. How do I get my partner to do something?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of how can my partner and I work together to create the most meaningful relationship that we can have? How do we talk to ourselves in order to achieve whatever it is that we're saying that we want or that we want to do? I mean, are we even placing ourselves in a space within a question that's going to get us moving in a direction that we even want to?
Mm-hmm.
Because that question almost sounds like a movement of force, like you're really pushing against something instead of how are we both working together to do this? And, but you're right. So we have this question in our head. There's something that we want to try, but where are we right now in our relationship in comparison to the question that we're asking? So if we want to open up our relationship, but we're only having sex the same way, or we're not talking about sex any other time, or we're not playing with toys, or we're not sharing our fantasies, or we're not sharing our desires. I mean, are any of those things happening first? Because really, you can't go from A to Z. You have to go to B. I mean, you have to
you can't go from Little League Baseball to the Major League Baseball. Like that's the next step you want to take.
Right.
And now, you may, like we get this question, there's really not a lot of background when we get it. And I would recommend to you guys with these kind of questions, give us a little background about yourself. My wife and I, we, do this in bed. We like using toys. We watch, porn together. We have great communication. We don't have any communication about sex. Whatever it is, a little more background will be helpful. As opposed to just how do I get my wife? And like you said, Jackie, how do I it's almost like, how do I force my partner to do this with me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, my partner doesn't like sailing because she gets seasick, but how can I force her to get on the boat anyway? And
well, like that. And that's a great example, because now it doesn't sound like you're working together.
mm-mm.
You know, it sounds like somebody is, I don't want to say give in or compromise.
But sometimes that's how that question feels
It
to
is.
me when I get it.
Yeah.
And the thing about a consensually non-monogamous relationship is it's a relationship, not only with yourself, but with your partner and potentially other people. It's about working together. And when you start saying things like, how do I get, it doesn't sound like you're working together to achieve something.
Mm-mm.
And so take a step back. The first step would be to take a step back and look at your overall relationship and where it stands today. And if you don't have any of that communication about your sex, your intimacy together, then start with that. So let's say you have missionary position only sexual relationship with your partner. Well, let's talk about, honey, I really love missionary position with you because I get to look at your beautiful smile and kiss you. But God, wouldn't it be fun if we tried doggy style maybe tonight and see how that feels? That's a step about how to communicate about sex. Right?
I know we get in this huge rush, right? It's feast or famine kind of mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of how can we just stay satiated every day? Like, what are we doing to feed our relationship on a daily basis so that we're not, wanting to make this drastic change and think that somehow that drastic change is going to be met with some kind of fanfare. You really have to be in a space where both of you can accept that change, because I promise you, it's a change.
Yes, for sure.
And if you're not prepared for that, it can knock your socks off, and then you're like, what was that?
And then too, I think, with the communication you guys are having, ask your partner if they have any desires or needs that aren't being met or fantasies that they would like fulfilled.
Right? See, that has nothing to do with, hey, honey, let's go to a swingers club, or hey, I think we should have an open relationship, which your partner's just going to be like, wait, what? What is happening? Am I doing something wrong? I mean, I can see where that could really cascade into something. But what you're offering just sounds beautiful. I mean, because now it's incorporating me into this conversation.
Yeah. So your partner hopefully will share with you what would make them feel better. Thanks for asking that, honey. I've been thinking about trying this.
Yes.
And maybe you don't use sex toys, but maybe your partner's thinking about, adding a sex toy to the mix.
Right.
Start with something like that and see where that takes you, and play with that for a while. And then maybe take it to the next, find another level to take it up.
Yeah, maybe some of that fantasy play, maybe kind of step outside of that box a little bit and see how that is between the two of you. And then what are those conversations like before and after?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are you learning about each other? Instead of just making a drastic comment and then everybody is playing catch up to try to get to a point, instead of just like gradually letting that build up.
Yeah. And I think, we see that being an issue many times with couples where they are in the midst of trying something more, along the lines of an open relationship or a swinger relationship, and something happens that causes one of them to feel a lot of fear and uncomfortability or being jealous. And they're having to take, it's important at that point to take a step back. And that's okay, as long as you're communicating and you take that step back together and agree on doing it. But it works so much better if you just get to that point gradually together.
Yeah.
So your desire is to have, another analogy, a banana split. I mean, but you're just used to having 1 scoop of ice cream in a bowl. Maybe try 3 scoops of ice cream in a bowl first, and then add some fruit to it. And then maybe add the banana down the road, and then maybe add the whipped cream and the cherry on top. I mean, you can take it a step at a time to see if you end up liking the banana split or not.
Right.
And along the way, if you find that you don't like chocolate ice cream, you can switch it up to maybe pistachio ice cream with your strawberry and vanilla.
Right.
And the same thing happens with our relationship. What do we like doing together? So we found that we like playing with a toy at the same time that we're together. And then, that may go, move to something else, maybe a toy for the guy as well. And you begin to communicate more about sex when these things start happening. And the key really in relationships is communication. We talk about it over and over and over again. And this is another example of when you're asking us, how do I get my partner to agree to an open relationship? What you're talking about is, how do I communicate with my partner that I'm having some fantasies about opening up our relationship? Well, where are you in the terms of relationship at that point? Is there room to try something less than that and to communicate your desires to have something less than that?
Right.
So maybe it is, hi, honey, I'm having this fantasy about you using a toy. How do you feel about that? That maybe something you'd be interested in, and see what happens from there.
Well, and here's the thing, like you said, when you go straight to, opening up the relationship in comparison to where you are within the relationship, those can be 2 really drastic spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to wind it back and just work with your partner in just trying some other kinds of conversations. And the reason I say that is because as soon as we set out an expectation like that, how do I get my partner into the swinging lifestyle? You've already said, this is what I want. This is the thing that I want.
That's your desire.
That's your desire. So you already within that statement have an expectation. And your expectation is now based on the cooperation of your partner. So if your partner doesn't cooperate with that, now all of a sudden your focus becomes, I can't get that thing that I want.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you and your partner are on different sides of a fence. So now you're not working together. So, but this thing that you're wanting to do with your partner. But now you've placed you and your partner kind of
as almost adversaries.
Almost as adversaries, right? So it's like, again, it's about being really conscious of our communication. We have so much responsibility because it's not about, we're going to sit down and have this conversation. It's about us being mature enough and responsible enough to own our intent. What is it that we're saying? Where am I trying to go? And if I'm trying to go somewhere with my partner, what are the steps that we can take together to get there?
Mm-hmm.
That can save us so much anxiety, so much grief and time if we answer those questions first before, running off and telling our partner this thing that we want, because we're not 5 and our partner isn't our parent. It's about making sure that we're treating this couple thing that we're wanting and treating it as if it's a couple decision.
Which it needs to be.
Which
absolutely.
It needs to
if
be.
You care about your relationship at all, for sure.
Right. So, I mean, it's such an important point that you bring up about that, about making sure that the conversation or the communication that you're going to have fits where you even are at the moment.
Kind of on the same topic, but something that I've come across in talking to people. You know, I'll be at lunch with someone outside of our lifestyle group, and you know, the topic will come up about us being in an open relationship, and they'll say something like, "Yeah, my wife would never agree to something like that." And what I end up asking them is, well, how do you know? I mean, what is it specifically? And there's times where, you know, yeah, we watched a movie and it happened and she said, "Oh my God, I could never do anything like that. That's gross." You know, maybe she's indicated that's where she stands, but most times he's never even asked about anything. They really do have that kind of relationship we're talking about here. That's just, you know, it's pretty consistent on what they do when they talk about sexually, which is they don't talk about it very much. And if you don't communicate with your partner about those things, how do you know if they want that or not? You know, so here's this guy. How do I get my partner to agree to an open relationship? Well, maybe she's thinking the same thing and you don't even know it because you've never even had conversations along that line. You know, that's an interesting thing I think happens often.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We just assume that our partner is thinking a certain way, maybe based on their actions in some way. But a lot of times I don't think it's at all. I just maybe we're projecting our fears on our partner. Maybe we're the ones that aren't really interested or, you know, have a lot of fears about doing it. And so we think our partner feels the same way.
Right. Well, and it's an easy way for us not to have those hard conversations. And we've had this conversation before. You know, part of communication is the success of communication is being able to take a topic from the beginning to the end, to not be afraid to go through that rough path that sometimes those conversations take us. And this can be one of those things because, you know, if we bring up an open relationship concept, that may mean that we have to talk about our sexuality, or may mean that we have to talk about our desires, or we have to talk about our fears, or we have to talk about our self-esteem. You know, those topics that maybe make us a little bit nervous or cause us some anxiety or kind of triggering for us. And even though we're going to talk about it with our partner, this person that's, you know, heavily in our lives, it's amazing how we can still be very much afraid sometimes to talk to that person.
Well, I think a lot of people are afraid to talk about sex, period.
Well, that can be.
And so if you're in a relationship where that seems to be the case, where, you know, your partner doesn't really, I think most people know if their partner is nervous about talking about sex. And if that's the case, you definitely want to take baby steps and try and learn how to have more open communication about your sex life.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, if you think back to when you first got married, was there a lot of conversation about sex at that time?
No.
So I can see as how it would be difficult for some couples to have those kind of conversations, because a lot of people, I mean, myself included, weren't really raised to have those kind of talks. We didn't talk about sex.
No. Yeah. That makes me kind of nervous even thinking about like how I was back then.
So that's really a place to start.
Yeah.
Is to learn how to talk about it in a more open way with your partner.
Right. And then, you know, it'll just gradually flow into those other deeper conversations that you're wanting to have. And the two of you together will be able to make those decisions on how you want to progress that relationship, you know, whatever that ends up looking like. But it's about the two of you. It's about the two of you getting what you both want.
Yes.
Right? Through working together. It's funny how that is.
Yes. You are a couple.
Yes.
In a relationship, there's a lot of things I think that you have to, when you make that commitment to somebody, you have to work on together. It's not like making decisions on your own.
Right.
Maybe there are some decisions we are independent as well, and we do things on our own. Like I decided to go karting or paragliding or whatever it is without having to get your permission.
Right. But if you said you have to go karting with me, I might be like, well, but I don't want to go karting.
But how can I get you to come go karting with me?
What, right? $50 million. No, I mean, it was just, so it's that same, it's that same, it's the same thing.
It is very similar. Yeah.
So anyway, I hope this has helped. I hope this helps the couples out there to be able to relax enough to have the conversations, to calm down long enough, to have the slow conversations about where they are in their relationship, in their sexuality, what they're hoping to gain through their marriage, through their sexuality. How can everybody in that arena feel satisfied in growing together?
Absolutely. And if you want to learn more about it, check out openlove101.com. Sign up for our email list, and we'll update you on blogs and videos that we have coming out. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Hope you enjoyed the show.
See ya.
So did you like that video? Then be sure and click on that subscribe button below, and you'll be guaranteed great sex the rest of your life.